Hey, welcome back, guys. Dr. Jaws here, and tonight we are continuing our journey of sharks of the Caribbean. So, last week it was a lot more biodiversity focused and kind of more um, science focused as far as like we were focused on the regional field guides on the species diversity that you can find in the Caribbean. But today I think it's going to be more dive focused. So I'm really excited to learn more about the specific locations where a lot of these sharks could be found and a lot of the more common species that you can dive with, as well as just like general notes on shark behavior in the Caribbean and you know how many species that you see in each different location, what each location is known for, and also just kind of like looking at the Caribbean from an ecological perspective as well. So, I think we'll just go ahead and dive in. So, just as a reference throughout the stream tonight, we have this great Caribbean Sea dive map and reef creature guide. So, we have the dive map here on the front, and then we'll flip it to the back to see the creatures. But just as kind of a broad reminder, the Caribbean is this sea here that's enclosed by Cuba, Haiti, Dominican Republic, the Lesser Antilles. The Greater Antilles are Cuba, the Puerto Rico, Haiti, Dominican Republic, the major island, and Jamaica. These are the Greater Antilles. Lesser Antilles are on the eastern edge. You have the northern coast of South America, Central America, and parts of Mexico. So this is the Caribbean Sea. Sometimes the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and then southern Florida, sometimes they're sort of included when we talk about diving or traveling, but these are not truly Caribbean areas, but ecologically they're very, very similar to the Caribbean. And what's interesting is that the Caribbean, when you think of tropical places around the world, Caribbean actually has the lowest diversity of, I believe it's both fishes and corals, compared to other seas or dive locations like in Indonesia or the Red Sea, or it's interesting how this area has evolved, where it's like not as quite diverse, but it is a unique diversity, and a lot of really cool animals live here. So here is a kind of a rough guide, just like a very high level guide on animals that you could find in the Caribbean. So we'll kind of take a closer look here. So for me, what I particularly know this area for is parrotfishes and angelfishes. So we have a lot of beautiful parrotfish diversity, like the stoplight parrotfish here, or the rainbow parrotfish, which is really beautiful. The blue parrotfish is the big one for me, where I've seen the species in the wild once. I was in Aruba running into the species, and it's a really cool fish. Parrotfish famously break pieces of coral apart, and as they digest it, they actually form the beach sand for a lot of these places. A lot of it is contributed by reef or fishes that eat parts of the reef, like the parrotfish, and they process that and turn it into beach sand for a lot of these beaches. So parrotfish are a very interesting staple of the Caribbean. The angelfishes, of course, are quite famous and really beautiful as well. You have the queen angelfish, which is probably the most famous. I kind of feel like the queen is the most iconic. But my favorite is the French angelfish. I just think it's like a very subtle color palette and just really beautiful, having the dark gray with the yellow um, uh, blotches in between the scales. You have the rock beauty on the far right, top right corner here. And then you have the spot-fin butterfly fish, which I was hoping to see on my dive this weekend. I didn't see it, but I did see a lot of cool black sea bass and wrasses, so it was a really great dive overall. But spot-fin butterfly fish, a couple others here. The four-eyed butterfly fish is also, I think, a very exciting staple of the Caribbean. You've got larger animals too, like the tarpon, also known as the silver king, the great barracuda, which is a really cool, intimidating-looking fish. You have the spotted eagle ray, which we are very familiar with on the channel. Snappers, trunkfish, drum, lionfish, which are not native to the Caribbean but are an invasive species. So lionfish, unfortunately, have been accidentally introduced into this ecosystem, and they've really taken over They don't really have a natural predator in the Caribbean. They reproduce really quickly. They lay, I think it's like at least thousands of eggs, and devour a lot of other fish. So lionfish are a really big invasive species problem. The morays, the spotted moray and the green moray. I would say the green moray is kind of the icon of this area. These guys get to be pretty big. You have balloonfish, glasseye, the sergeant majors. These are the two fish I mentioned sometimes, where they're very fierce despite their size. They're very prone to bite. They are not afraid of large things like divers. So nurse shark is on this guide. So we've seen that nurse sharks are a very big part of the Caribbean already, and pretty sizable and exciting sharks to dive with too. Trumpet fish, which is a really cool. I think these are in their own group. They almost look like pipefish and seahorses. They might be distantly related, but I think they're in their own group if I'm not mistaken. Then snappers, groupers, like the black grouper, tiger grouper. And then triggerfish, with the top left being the queen triggerfish, which is an icon as far as triggerfish go. We have the gray triggerfish up here, but we don't really get these species. A lot of these like beautiful colors, these wonderful tropical species, they like to be in warmer waters, beginning probably of Florida. A lot of these you can find in Florida. And then as you get further south into the islands, each region is a little bit different in terms of biodiversity. So speaking of regions, the Caribbean can be split into, I would say, 5 ecoregions technically. You can maybe include this one in the bottom right, so we'll just take a quick look on what each one is. So the first one is the Greater Antilles, which includes Cuba, Dominican Republic, Haiti, Jamaica, and Puerto Rico. The Eastern Caribbean, which includes the Lesser Antilles, is a little bit different. There's something about the physiology or the ecology of both places that makes them distinct enough to be 2 separate ecoregions. So we'll see a lot of examples of dive locations in the Greater Antilles, that are part of the same ecoregion. So particularly Cuba and Jamaica. But it's actually really cool to see that the Greater Antilles and the Lesser Antilles are truly distinct enough from one another to be classed as their own ecoregions. Related to that, you have the Southern Caribbean, which is a little bit different as well from the other 2 regions. You have the Southwest Caribbean, which is some of the most famous diving in the world, particularly in Belize, and Nicaragua has some really amazing diving too. Oh, I'm sorry, Belize is up here. Western Caribbean is really famous diving. Cancun, Mexico is up here too. Cancun having fantastic diving. And then in the Southwestern Caribbean, my apologies, Honduras and Nicaragua also have really, really good diving and really exciting locations. But each of these is a distinct ecoregion. They're fundamental. There's just fundamental difference between each one of these regions that will create a slightly different makeup of animals and seascapes as you explore each one. So we'll use, again, this guide as a reference, so just kind of going around starting from Cuba. We have Cuba, the Cayman Islands south of that, Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. You have the Virgin Islands here. You have the Puerto Rico Trench, which is technically outside of the Caribbean, but this is the deepest part of the Atlantic, which is why I just wanted to point it out. The Lesser Antilles, including St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago. On the southern edge, you have Venezuela, Aruba, and Curacao, Bonaire. So all 3 of these places, Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire, are really famous dive locations. Particularly Bonaire. Bonaire has a lot of scuba diving activity. You have Colombia with going into Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Caratasca Lagoon, Honduras. You have the Gulf of Honduras, Belize, and then Mexico with Cozumel is a really big dive location here on the western edge of the Caribbean, and then Cancun on the western edge as well. So as far as the ocean goes, it's kind of interesting to see you have the Cayman Trench in southern Cuba. You have this kind of like really broad plain up here, this pretty shallow area that divides 2 basins of the Caribbean. So you have the Venezuela Basin, and the Yucatan Basin. You also have the Colombian Basin here, which is kind of subdivided by a little bit of a ridgeline south of the Dominican Republic. And what's kind of cool is that part of why the Caribbean has formed the way it's formed is that there is a continental plate here. It is actually a single plate that rubs up against the Pacific plate, the Atlantic plate, and the Gulf of Mexico. It's its own unit. So that's a huge factor in terms of contributing to the unique wildlife that you see in this region. So, and then I think finally, just as a general overview before we look at specific dive sites and specific opportunities to be with sharks, just this is a true tropical part of the world. This receives an immense amount of solar energy, 24/7, 365. So with that, you have huge amount of life, huge amount of biodiversity. What's interesting is that comparatively tropical areas aren't as productive as temperate areas. So temperate areas actually have more biomass as far as like plankton or like the East Coast of the United States is some of the most productive ecosystem in the world, or the West Coast as well, just having this huge biomass, huge blooms of plankton that cascade into huge numbers of fish, especially forage fishes, which in turn feed a lot of whales. So you see a lot more whale diversity and actually shark diversity too, up north or south, but not really quite in the tropics. So tropics, great dive opportunities with sharks because the water is so clear, and there is a healthy amount of sharks in these areas. But as far as biodiversity goes, it's kind of interesting that large animals like sharks and whales, they're kind of more, the biodiversity is a bit higher as you get higher latitude, which is kind of fascinating. But overall, I mean, the solar energy and the topography of the Caribbean makes these waters very clear, wonderful for diving, just this beautiful, just iconic, clear blue water, wonderful corals, and a very unique palette, if you will, compared to other parts of the world. There's nothing quite like the Caribbean in terms of the corals that you see or the fish that you see. So I think without further ado, we could just go ahead and dive in. So I think we'll hop back and forth between this guide, because this is actually a really good guide, the Ultimate Guide to Caribbean Diving. It's very detailed, so we'll kind of hop back and forth between this and then a couple specific locations, so that we can kind of cross-reference and see some beautiful photographs and footage of animals that you'll see here. So why dive the Caribbean? Year-round tropical warmth, large biodiversity, iconic bucket list sites, exceptional visibility, unmatched dive variety, and tailored to every diver. The Caribbean isn't one diving experience, it's a collection of them packed into a sea small enough that you can reach a completely different underwater world in a single short flight or sometimes a single boat ride. As you would expect, the Caribbean is totally tropical. Water temperature sits between 26 and 29 degrees Celsius, or 79 to 84 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. So 5mm wetsuit is about as heavy as you'll ever pack. Visibility often pushes past 30 meters, 100 feet, on a calm day off of Little Cayman or the Turks and Caicos. You can watch a reef from the surface before your mask even touches the water. The biodiversity is staggering. Eagle rays, reef sharks, hawksbill turtles, seahorses, schooling jacks, and walls of coral that stretch as far as the viz allows. But the real draw is the variety of diving itself. Within a few islands of each other, you can drift a wall in Cozumel, explore a wreck in Barbados, photograph pygmy seahorses on the Bonaire Reef, and stare into the blue hole into Belize. The Caribbean packs wall diving, wreck diving, drift diving, and shore diving into one relatively compact region, which means you can chase a completely different trip each year without ever leaving the basin. What you pick depends entirely what kind of diver you are. That's what the rest of the guide here is built to sort out. So we'll, again, reference it as we explore. But just as an example of the diving that you get to see here, we'll take a look at this bull shark dive in Playa del Carmen in Mexico. So this is going to be the Western Caribbean. And okay, there we go. So sorry for the delays, but they're doing the entering from the back. And there we go. So this is a pretty flat area, so kind of a mix of sand and rock base with a bull shark, a bunch of bull sharks, a lot of them here. So gorgeous, gorgeous visibility, great view of these amazing animals that are. This is the same bull shark that is responsible for fatal shark attacks around the world. So there are plenty of opportunities to dive with them safely, but this is a really amazing experience and a little freaky. Just I mean, you can see the size of these animals, and particularly the size of their mouths. We mentioned this many times before, but bull sharks are one of the select few group of sharks that are evolved to handle large prey items. So it's not just their physical size, but also the size of their mouths and the shape of their teeth that allow them to go after marine mammals, like dolphins and um, uh, large prey items like sea turtles, and then unfortunately sometimes people. So hand feeding the bull shark, there's a lot of controversy in terms of the ecotourism benefits and kind of harm to the animals or danger to the animals. Um, but you can see this seems to be a relatively calm situation. The sharks are not acting aggressively; they're just drawn by the food. They're swimming very conservatively, very calm, not arching their pectoral fins or anything. They're huge, huge animals. Look how big they are as far as like the size, the girth. These are all adults. And I don't see any other species. These are all just bull sharks. They're surrounded by remora, as well as a couple of surgeonfish, tang. That's a bull shark in the distance. Still being very calm, drawn by the bait, but not really too interested in people other than the bait that they're feeding out. So, really interesting opportunity. So, first kind of stop on our tour around the Caribbean. We'll start with Cancun in Mexico. So this would be I think this is on our map here. So right here at the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. So really famous destination, not just for diving, but I know a lot of Americans visit Cancun in particular. So, but the diving opportunities are fantastic. So starting with Cancun, sharks in the Caribbean. The Mexican Caribbean is a dream destination for travelers who want to enjoy not only its paradisical beaches, but also the incredible marine life that inhabits the crystal clear waters. Among the most impressive animals are sharks, and I'll just kind of skim through this. One of the most exciting activities you could do in this region is swimming with sharks. In the Mexican Caribbean, there are several species of sharks with which it is possible to swim safely as long as safety and conservation rules are respected. This blog will introduce you to the most common species as well as the best locations and seasons to enjoy this incredible experience. The Mexican Caribbean is one of the most biodiverse regions on the planet, with over 800 species of fish and a vast variety of corals, mollusks, sea turtles, and marine mammals. The biodiversity is largely due to its reef system, one of the most important in the world, which is part of the Mesoamerican reef system. Coral reefs not only provide shelter to thousands of marine species, but also play a vital role in protecting the coast and producing oxygen. The warm, nutrient-rich waters attract many species of sharks in the Mexican Caribbean. These sharks perform an essential ecological function by controlling fish populations and other marine animals, maintaining the balance of ecosystems. However, due to illegal fishing, habitat destruction, and climate change, some shark species are endangered, making the experience of swimming them even more valuable as it promotes environmental education and conservation through ecotourism. So, sharks in the Mexican Caribbean, the first one they mention is the whale shark. So, as we know, it's the largest shark in the world, reaching lengths over 12 meters and weights of over 20 tons. So it's about 40 feet, 45 feet. Let me make sure I got that right. 40 feet, about 40 feet right there. Despite its colossal size, the whale shark is completely harmless to humans. Its diet consists mainly of plankton, small fish, and crustaceans, which it filters through its enormous gills while swimming with its mouth open. May to September is a high season for the species. However, the season may vary slightly depending on climate conditions and migratory patterns. Whale shark is primarily found in tropical and temperate waters. Between May and September. Most popular places whale sharks in the Caribbean are Holbox, Conroe-Nicholls, the Wildfire Reserve. These areas, especially near Holbox, are known for their high concentration of whale sharks, making the experience more accessible and safe for tourists. So this is going to be really amazing photograph. So we have a whale shark, just from a dorsal view, staring down into its beautiful patternation as it travels across a reef. So this is a really beautiful shot. So whale sharks, each one has a unique set of spots, so no two whale sharks look exactly alike. And actually, you can even see this individual, you could probably tell apart pretty clearly from others, where you have you can see that the spots are layered a little bit differently, where they're not even. It's not really an even pattern. I can see, for example, in this area right here, if you can see my mouse, on the left side of the body, you have a patch right here with two spots really closely together, and then in between two widely spaced spots. So if you compare this individual with another whale shark and look at the same region, you probably would see a very different spot patternation. So it's kind of cool that each whale shark is special. Each whale shark is a one-of-a-kind individual with a one-of-a-kind spot pattern, similar to like human fingerprints. It's really cool. Again, beautiful shot, just from a dorsal view of the species. Curious where these locations are, so I'm just gonna, don't want to screw up my bandwidth, so I'm just going to look these up on the phone and point them out on the map that we have. So, whole box. Okay, so one of the key locations to find whale sharks is up here. Holbox is on this island here, so north of Cancun, on the northern end of the Yucatan Peninsula. So, and actually, it's kind of cool that, there we go, we have a whale shark just noted right here in this, as an icon in this area, so that maybe is a nod to the fact that this part of the Caribbean is a natural aggregation site for them. So, very cool. Black tip shark. So this is kind of interesting. The picture here is a beautiful shot of a black tip reef shark. So this one is different from the classic black tip shark, which also occurs in this region. So black tip reef sharks have more deeply colorized dorsal fins, caudal fin and anal fin. These are more. It's like if you dip these fins into black paint. Whereas the other black tip shark, like the classic black tip shark, is just like a small little bit of coloration at the very edge of the tip of the dorsal fin. So black tip reef shark is a beautiful species. It does live here. They mainly inhabit coral reefs. In the Mexican Caribbean, they're commonly seen around such places such as Isla Cozumel, Isla Mujeres, and the Riviera Maya. They're generally found in areas with good visibility and warm waters. They can be found year-round, but especially from May to December, when encounters are more frequent due to better visibility conditions and concentration of fish near the reefs. So a beautiful shot of a black tip reef shark. Completely harmless species to be around. These guys don't get to be that big. Black tip sharks get significantly larger, but black tip reef sharks, these are very popular in aquaria. They're just smaller and much more approachable species. We saw footage of this, but the bull shark. So this is a great shot of a bull shark here, and I think this one is by Andy Merck as well. But you can actually see this is a huge individual, so much bulk. It's a female bull shark, so much bulk on her. And you can actually see some scarring on her back. So it could be mating scars, it could be territorial scars, it could be maybe an old predation event from another animal. It could also be parasites, but I think based on the nature of how these look, this might be. I think this is damage from something else, and it could be another bull shark, but I'm not entirely sure. So, but has that nice, prominent, almost perfectly triangular dorsal fin, pretty large pectoral fins, and semi-falcate in their shape too. And really, the big thing is like they have the small eyes and just like the heavy body. They're pretty easy sharks to identify, even though this group is a little tricky. Bull sharks, I think, are more iconic in the Carcharodontis group of sharks. Just their girth and their small eyes and the blunt snout, and the combination of all their features makes them pretty easy. So. Size ranges between 2 to 3 meters in length. Is one of the most feared shark species due to its territorial behavior. However, bull sharks are not as dangerous as their reputation suggests, and with proper supervision, tourists can have safe encounters with them. The bull shark is common in places like Banco Chinchorro, an atoll located southeast of the Yucatan Peninsula, famous for its biodiversity and clear waters. It is an excellent place for tourists seeking an encounter with bull sharks in their natural habitat. They can also be seen in Cozumel and the Riviera Maya near estuary areas. So that's actually really cool that that relates to the bull shark's lifestyle, where they go into fresh water. They're famous for doing that. And bull sharks will pup in low salinity water and estuaries, so I would not be surprised if both locations are actual nursing grounds for the bull sharks. One really cool thing about bull sharks in this part of the world, and I'll go back to the map, if you go further south into Nicaragua, you actually have Lake Nicaragua, and you have a theorized population of bull sharks living full time in Lake Nicaragua, being a truly freshwater shark. So originally it was thought to be a different species, which they named the Lake Nicaragua shark, but then come to find out it was identified as a bull shark later. But there's actually quite a few local attacks in Lake Nicaragua that haven't been in the shark attack file. They're kind of more like anecdotal accounts of incidents with bull sharks in this area. But it's just so fascinating that there's a population of bull sharks that enter Lake Nicaragua that is either close to be full-time freshwater or spends just so much time in the freshwater that effectively it's almost like a permanent part of the lake system. So it's just really fascinating ecologically. Although bull sharks can be present year-round, the best time to find them in Banco Chinchorro is between November and March, where the waters are colder and the conditions are for viewing are optimal. So really beautiful shot of a bull shark here. Caribbean reef shark, of course, is an icon of the Caribbean. So Caribbean reef shark is a small species, averaging 1.5 to 2 meters in length. So that's about like 7 feet. So pretty sizable shark overall. Sorry. It's generally found near coral reefs and is known for its calm and curious behavior. While it does not pose a threat to humans, it is always recommended to maintain a respectful distance. The Caribbean reef shark is found along the reefs of the Mexican Caribbean, especially in places like Isla Cozumel, Isla Mujeres, Puerto Morelos, and the coastal areas of the Riviera Maya. So it's cool to see that Caribbean reef sharks and bull sharks are occupying effectively the same locations. Due to their size and behavior, it's one of the most accessible sharks for tourists seeking to swim with them in shallow waters. Caribbean reef sharks can be found year-round, although the best time to see them is during the dry season between November and April, when the conditions for sighting and visibility are more favorable. So I really like this photograph where we start out with a classic Caribbean coral reef. So you can see a rocky foundation with a variety of corals. This photo is a mistake though, because this is not a Caribbean reef shark. This is a nurse shark. I will pull up a Caribbean reef shark photo here. This is a Caribbean reef shark. So Caribbean reef shark is a Carcharodontis. So this is Carcharodontis prezii. So it's a cousin of bull sharks, but obviously looks a little bit different. They are a bit more slender. They have similarly shaped pectoral fins, Dorsal fin is a little bit slightly broader, still mostly triangular in shape, but the biggest thing is that these guys have larger eyes, more slender bodies, whereas bull sharks have smaller eyes and heavier bodies. The shark in this photograph, of course, is a nurse shark. So this is the famous lapdog of the sea, or couch potato of the sea. These guys like to basically spend most of their time near the bottom, patrolling the bottom, sometimes resting or looking for invertebrates in rocky crevices. So beautiful shark, very different group in the Orlectolobiformes. It's actually a cousin of whale sharks. They're part of the same order. They have the same basic body plan. This is a great photograph though too, with really pretty blue eyes in this particular individual. And you actually can clearly see the nasal barbels too. So really pretty shark. Top tips for swimming with sharks. Never swim with sharks without supervision or an experienced guide. Local guides are experts in animal behavior and know the best practices to ensure a safe experience for both tourists and sharks. Keep a respectful distance. Sharks are wild animals and should not be touched or disturbed. Stay calm and avoid sudden movements. Follow the guide's instructions. Each shark species may have different behaviors, so guides will provide specific information on how to interact with each one. Ethics and conservation. Ecotourism can play an important role in shark conservation. Responsible tourism helps raise awareness about the importance of protecting these species and their habitats. Do not feed the sharks. Feeding them can alter natural behavior and create risk for both humans and sharks. And finally, ecotourism in the Mexican Caribbean not only provides unforgettable experiences, but also plays a key role in shark conservation. By involving local communities in tourism activities related to shark watching, it helps foster awareness and protection of these impressive marine creatures. So, nice starting point as far as sharks of the Caribbean. So this was Cozumel, Mexico. Cancun, Mexico, and just kind of general guides on encountering sharks in the Mexican Caribbean. So, I think it would be good to take a look in more detail at Caribbean reef sharks, just because this is the namesake of the region. And I did promise last stream that we would go into this species in a little bit more detail, so just because it is so iconic for this region. But these guys are strictly warm water species. We do get them in the United States in the Carolina coast, but that's as far north as they will go. They're more populous in Florida, and then are a staple of places like the Bahamas, and then obviously the Caribbean. So again, classic Carcharodontis build, just having your typical sharky features, black fin tips on the undersides of the pectoral fins, sleek, streamlined body, relatively large eyes. Oh, there's a lionfish. So a nice little shot of a lionfish, again, invasive species. It looks like this diver is spearing one. So this is actually a good thing, where it's good to... Oh, there we go. There's a Caribbean reef shark going after a lionfish. This is actually a good program where lionfish are an invasive species that outcompete local fish, and they're a real threat to biodiversity in this area. So spearing for lionfish and then feeding them to the sharks, it's actually a really good conservation program, because that way the sharks get some food, but also we're removing a very destructive species from the reef. So and it's a big problem. Like lionfish, it's almost I don't want to say it's like an unsolvable problem, but it is a really big problem because they are so prevalent. You can actually even see lionfish up Rhode Island, as far north as Rhode Island, because they do get caught in the Gulf Stream sometime. So, but really cool to see that these reef sharks are kind of partnering with humans almost, where the humans are spearing the lionfish and the sharks are definitely benefiting from that. So really unique, partnership here. Really fascinating. And I love that once the shark has hold of the lionfish, it swims rapidly away so that it isn't disturbed by other sharks. This is also a great view of how you never want to underestimate the speed of a shark, where sharks will swim at a cruising speed at their default state. So but once they are motivated, they are like a rocket. They will take off like a bullet. Very, very, very fast animals, and it's a little deceptive sometimes. As they cruise through the water, where that's not their normal state. They you know, or I'm sorry, that is their normal state, but that's not any indication of how fast they can go. Like once they're motivated, once they're ready to either hone in on something or get away from a situation, they will take off like a rocket. So. It's interesting that speared lionfish, like the sharks are going after speared lionfish, because I'm curious if they're maybe not really prone to hunting lionfish that are alive, just because like lionfish are they are venomous and they're covered in spines, and it's one of the reasons why they do so well in these settings. They don't really have a lot of natural predators, so. But it looks like these Caribbean reef sharks are really, really excited about the activity that's going on. So really interesting, different kind of conservation here. I love that this diver just made a bubble ring, so it's like a tricky technique. I don't know how to do that quite yet. One of my instructors had he could do that with his fists, where he would clap his fists in such a way that he makes this amazing like bubble ring underwater. So, but yeah, really interesting stuff. So, I think we'll move on back to the main guide. Let's see, we'll skip kind of like diving style. Destinations at a glance. This actually might be kind of interesting. So here we go. So going around the Caribbean. We've got Mexico, so key dive hubs are Cozumel and Playa del Carmen. Let's see, signature dive sites are Palancar Reef in Cozumel and Cenote dos Ojos in the mainland. And everybody, it's best for all levels, everybody can dive this. In Belize, you have key dive hubs in Ambergris, Cayey, Placenia, and Ternate Atoll. The Great Blue Hole is a world-famous location, Lighthouse Reef, Half Moon Cay, but Great Blue Hole in particular, this is like one of the 7 dive wonders of the world. So Belize is a huge, huge dive location. Just one of a kind. So hopefully, if we have time, we'll get to take a look at that tonight. Honduras, you have Roatan, which is also a huge dive location. Roatan is very, very famous at the Utila. Great place to see whale sharks. Halliburton Wreck is a particularly great location for diving in Honduras. We'll skip Bahamas because that's not technically part of the Caribbean. Turks and Caicos, let me double check the map. Because Cayman Islands Turks and Caicos are not, so we'll skip Turks and Caicos because that's technically part of the Bahamian Atlantic. It's not a Caribbean location. Cayman Islands, you have Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and Cayman Brac. Great for stingrays. Stingray City is a famous location in Grand Cayman, and then Bloody Bay in Little Cayman. You have Saba, St. Kitts, and St. Martin. Eye of the Needle in Saba, MV Rivertaw in St. Kitts, HMS Proselyte in St. Martin. Great for pinnacles, wrecks, and advanced diving. You have St. Lucia has, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, so I apologize if I butcher this, but Soufriere and St. Chastanet, I apologize. But there's a dive called Superman's Flight, which is a drift dive at the base of the Pitons. So Les Pitons is a really famous location in St. Lucia, so that would be a really cool spot to go. Bonaire is also world famous for diving. Same with Curacao, both of them are world famous places. So great for shore diving, diving for beginners, and then Curacao has great wreck diving as well. And then particular dive locations are St. Pierre, Hilma, Hooker Wreck, Superior Producer Wrecks, and then Carpile. And then finally, Aruba, you have Oranjestad, which I've been to before. It was a very, very long time ago, but beautiful location. Did some shore snorkeling, and actually some offshore snorkeling. So saw some barracuda, some blue parrotfish, some 4-eye butterfly fish, Really, really, really beautiful. And gray angelfish is one of my favorites. So really beautiful location. And then Antilla World War II shipwreck. I remember when I did go to Aruba, I was really excited to hopefully see some sharks, and the dive guide correctly said it's very uncommon to see them in the daytime. When you're snorkeling, it's really, really uncommon. Some locations may have that, but many locations don't. Sharks are kind of really hard to run into. So, but I think our next spot, which will be really cool to talk about, the best kept shark diving secret, Cuba. So we'll zooming in to Cuba now, which is part of the Greater Antilles. So Cuba is fascinating. Where as an American, there's a lot of bad history between the United States and Cuba, and so I think in American zeitgeist, it's not as celebrated as it could be in terms of its ecology. I've heard that Cuba is amazing in terms of its biodiversity, its tropical ecosystems, and some of them are just one of a kind. It's kind of like there's parts of Cuba that are kind of like a paradise in terms of like the unique kinds of animals that you can see here that are found nowhere else. So there are some endemic species on the island itself and around the island that cannot be seen anywhere else in the world, and it's really incredible to the incredible location. So I'm excited to see this guide kind of echoes a sentiment that I think a lot of people in the conservation community agree with. That yeah, Cuba has a lot going on in a good way as far as just nature opportunities and the kind of nature and the kind of wildlife that's in Cuba. There's a lot of really cool stuff on that island. So. The Caribbean is one of the most popular scuba diving areas for American travelers, with easy access to attractive locations in Cayman Islands, Belize, the Mexican coast, and Honduras, among many others. There's a large concentration of famous dive sites with a variety of diving styles and marine life, including encounters of large marine creatures, world-known wrecks, and cave and cavern diving. Naturally, there are many interesting dives for underwater photographers, but there is one area which is still virgin, and that is Cuba. There are two main reasons for this. First, it is sort of a black area for American divers for political reasons, and second, is not easy to reach for European or Asian divers. As a European diver, I've been exploring the possibility of diving Cuba for a few years, and after checking some YouTube clips from Jardins de la Reina, I decided to see it for myself. The diving in the videos is too tempting to pass up. So here's a Caribbean reef shark from one of these locations in Cuba, so really beautiful shot. And actually, I'd like to check this out myself. So let's see if we can take a look. And I mean, I know it's a really complicated history, but it's a shame because, Americans used to travel to Cuba for vacation. And my grandmother was one of the last Americans to actually visit Cuba. For a resort vacation. She was there in the mid 50s for a just like a fun trip. So oh my gosh, so I'll kind of skip the ads. No, I can't. Why can't I zoom down? Which is really kind of mind blowing. And she had one of the resort travel guides too, which I wish I have, like I wish I kept, just because like it's such a one of a kind kind of weird piece of memorabilia, but yeah, Cuba it's a shame because like Cuba used to be a pretty accessible location, so here we go. Okay, so swimming with wild crocodiles, Jardins de la Reina, Gardens of the Queen, Cuba. So you have really tropical waters, and this is what I'm talking about too. This is the American crocodile. So the American crocodile is a species that you can see in Florida, but it's extremely rare. Also, these look like marine iguanas. Wow, I did not know you had marine iguanas in Cuba. That's really wild. But really great shot of American crocodile. Wow. So American crocodiles are can be found in the very southern tip of Florida. I think they have a fairly wide distribution. Oh my gosh, look at this. A fairly wide distribution. I would not go snorkeling with crocodiles. I think it's a terrible idea. I have not heard of a lot of fatal encounters with the species, but at the same time, any crocodile I just would not feel super comfortable with in the water. Um, and I'm not so sure about the temperament of crocodiles, because I've heard that American alligators are the calmest crocodilian, but American crocodiles are a little bit more aggressive. So yeah, there's a beautiful Caribbean reef shark right here. Look at that. And no joke, like that, the waters that you see here are just like gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Like very clear, really, really incredible shots that they're getting. Beautiful shot. These look like tarpon, actually, like a school of tarpon here. Sharks right over this reef in Cuba. I cannot believe. Oh, Goliath grouper. So really cool species. That's actually a little bit hazardous to be around if they get to be a large size. You have blue tang here. Goliath grouper getting very close to this diver. You have a lionfish, again, an invasive species here. A lot of quick cuts. Man, like what an incredible animal. Tarpon underneath this like little ledge. These guys are fun. They're very, very large. They get to be... I've seen a couple that get to be about 5 feet, so pretty cool fish to be around. I really should know these things. I think they're snapper around the crocodile, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that is a snapper of some kind. So it looks like they're baiting the crocodile, which, again, a little hazardous. I would not feel super comfortable being in the water with a crocodile. And I kind of like how this video is like interspersed with shots of a reef. Wow, great close-up on the jaws. Look at that. It's cool to see crocodile teeth are so different from shark teeth in that they are long and they're conical. They're really more for impaling and crushing, whereas shark teeth are more for slicing, like gripping and slicing. So, and then nice shot of a Goliath grouper coming right out of the camera. So when these guys get very large, they can bite people, but this one is a pretty manageable size. So, all right. Okay. This looks like a silky shark right here, from the same location in Cuba. So here we go. Jardines de la Reina is a remote and uninhabited part of southern Cuba, about 50 miles offshore. Do not confuse it with Jardines del Rey, which is further north. This area is heavily protected by the Cuban government, so only scuba diving and some light big game fishing are allowed here, thanks to Castro, who was a diver himself and wanted to preserve the area. Cuba is slowly starting to open the gates to tourism, and now we are blessed with the opportunity to dive in this fantastic area. There's one single government-controlled but joint venture Cuban-Italian operator conducting scuba activities, Avalon Diving. This area is reachable only by liveaboard, but Avalon Diving made an interesting floating hotel. It's essentially a big boat converted into a convenient mid-category dive facility anchored in the middle of Jardines and can accommodate up to 20 to 25 people living there at a time. Each day, divers are transferred to the dive locations with light, speedy boats that we are used to seeing in the rest of the Caribbean. The other option is to book a classic liveaboard, a 7-day cruise around Jardines. I found the floating hotel to be most effective. Interesting. So these are silky sharks right here. So really cool sharks that are typically more offshore. So this is also a cousin of Caribbean reef sharks and bull sharks. So same genus, Conroe-Nicholls. Let's see. Diving itself is something truly different. The water is very clear, and during every dive you are treated to close encounters with dozens of sharks for the entire dive. I've had the opportunity to dive throughout the world and have seen many sharks before, but never in this fashion. They even started to get a little boring. If I was the operator there, I might even dare to say sharks guaranteed or money back. This is definitely the place to go if you are a shark lover. Divers will most frequently encounter groups of silky and Caribbean reef sharks cruising around in close proximity, giving you many amazing photo options. Most of the sharks, if not every shark, are bigger than 2 meters, few bigger than 3 meters. The dive guides, who are very competent, know exactly where and when to take you, but it also seems that the sharks congregate around the mooring buoys as soon as they hear the boat engines, expecting few pieces of fish after the dive which they receive. The sharks are not aggressive, but curious about the divers, so there are never any sense of danger or threatening behavior. Of course, wide-angle photography and close wide-angle are common techniques here, so I never even bothered to try macro shooting. So, a nice shot of a Caribbean reef shark here. A bunch of lionfish here. And then more articles from this location. But yeah, really interesting. I've never heard of this location in Cuba before, but that video is pretty fascinating. And again, it's not the first time I've heard of Cuba being kind of like an ecological treasure trove. So that's really cool that we got to see a little bit of that here. So. Moving on to Jamaica. So we're going to travel south of Cuba to Jamaica. Kind of one of the more, it's kind of funny. I don't know much about Jamaican diving, but Jamaica, the island, of course, just culturally one of the more well-known locations, at least for, kind of like the United States. So really excited to learn more about shark opportunities here. So, a Jamaica Sharks Guide. I'm going to skim through this. So great shots of nurse sharks. So nurse sharks just sitting in this beautiful crevice here. These guys look like huge individuals, just kind of comfortably resting on the seabed in between these ledges of coral in Jamaica. So Jamaican shark species, we've got Caribbean reef shark. The Caribbean reef shark is a graceful sentinel of shallow coral reefs, often seen gliding effortlessly, embodying the spirit of Jamaican sharks. Let's see. Tiger shark. Next is a formidable tiger shark, a true marvel of nature. Distinguished by its striking stripes, the species is both powerful and captivating. Characterized by their large heads, short snouts. While they may evoke awe, their presence is crucial for the marine ecosystem, helping to maintain the balance of life beneath the waves. Hammerhead shark. Keep an eye out for the hammerhead shark, known for its distinctive head shake. This fascinating species is rarely seen patrolling Jamaican waters, but demonstrates elegance and efficiency in its hunting technique. Bull shark. Occasionally you may spot a robust bull shark in Jamaica's brackish waters, although they are not common. Although it's possible to see some of these shark species in Jamaica, encounters of them are a privilege only enjoyed by a few lucky divers, so specific excursions aren't organized. However, the same cannot be said about the other species, which are regular dive buddies, the nurse shark. Nurse sharks are the true star of Jamaica sharks. With their broad heads and serene nature, these sharks grow up to 30 feet long, resting peacefully on the ocean floor. In Jamaica, they're often found in groups displaying unusual social behavior for sharks. They congregate to rest during the day among coral passages, even piling on top of one another, showcasing their peaceful nature. As night falls, these sharks become more active, dispersing to hunt for crustaceans and small fish. The gatherings not only provide safety, but may also serve a potential purpose in reproduction. Additionally, nurse sharks, like their fellow species, may play a crucial role in maintaining healthy marine ecosystems. So, really cool shot of a group of divers here above this kind of coral crevice, and then you have a nurse shark sleeping on the bottom. So it's so cool. As a quick overview of what we've seen so far, so starting with Cancun and the Yucatan Peninsula, you have whale sharks and bull sharks. Bull sharks were a big part, and whale sharks are a big part here. All throughout, you have Caribbean reef sharks in Cuba, Mexico, and Jamaica. A little bit of nurse sharks here and there. Around Cuba, you had some silky sharks kind of in this area. And then Jamaica, a little bit of mention of a tiger shark, a little bit of mention of hammerhead sharks, but huge on nurse sharks. So you see sort of like the same assemblage, but their distribution is uneven between these different locations, which is pretty interesting. Okay. Guide to diving Jamaica sharks. When planning a diving adventure, select a reputable dive center like Dressel Divers Montego Bay. Look for centers that ensure experience guides, strict safety protocols, small groups, and environmental awareness. So, on that note, it is always extremely important to dive with well-known and accredited dive professionals. And I personally am just going to stick to SSI or PADI. Like PADI and SSI are both scuba operators that are well known around the world, and it's just safer to stick to something that you know and trust, because there are some operators, and I haven't heard any major horror stories in the Caribbean, but there's some operators around the world that just they either rush people, don't give them the proper training, and teach them really bad techniques that can be fatal, or they screw up the equipment, which also can be fatal. The worst thing I've heard of is pumping air tanks with something near like propane tanks. It's just and like mixing the gases is just really scary stuff. So very, very important for safety reasons to go with an experienced operator or a well-known accredited operator. So let's see. Jamaican shark conservation policies. So you have marine parks and protected areas. These are zones like Montego Bay Marine Park, where sharks and other marine species are given full protection. No fishing boats, no activities that can harm their habitat, just a safe haven for marine life. You have shark sanctuaries, so dedicated areas where sharks roam freely. You have Negro Shark Sanctuary. It's a standout location where you can see sharks in natural habitat. The sanctuary not only protects sharks, but also promotes ecotourism, letting divers and snorkelers interact responsibly with these majestic creatures. And then you have community-based conservation, ranging from beach cleanups to coral restoration projects. It's so cool. Another beautiful shot of a nurse shark just resting very peacefully, chilling out on the seabed here. Okay, so cool little snapshot of Jamaican sharks, so glad we got to read that. And we'll move on to Cayman Islands. So Cayman Islands shark identification. So Cayman Islands are actually right here between, or not really quite between, but off of Cuba and Jamaica. You have the Cayman Islands right here, right next to the Cayman Trench. So you probably have a lot of cool opportunities as far as deep water organisms coming up to the surface. So sharks of the Cayman Islands. In this section, we have split sharks into two groups. The first group, called coastal sharks, covers much of the species you'll find in shallow waters, so beneath 60 meters or 200 feet, around Cayman's coral reef systems, mangroves, turtle grass beds, and sand flats. The second group, titled pelagic sharks, covers those species that predominantly reside in deep ocean water. So that's actually really cool, because they're referencing the Cayman Trench here, and the surrounding area too, but the Cayman Trench in particular, it's a great opportunity to see deep water sharks or open water sharks come very close to the shore, so I'm quite excited to see these. So here we go. Coastal sharks, so again we have the nurse shark. This is a great photograph of a nurse shark here. Just kind of turning into the camera in a beautiful coral crevice, so... I won't read the entire thing, but I'll just kind of read any facts that stand out to me that we haven't really seen on the channel. So, relatively docile and highly resident with strong site fidelity, preferring species-specific resting spots. They will return to the same site each day, although an individual may have several favorite spots. Nurse sharks are one of the number of species of sharks that have strong muscles by which they actively pump water over their gills. This allows them to rest while they're able to respire. They are mainly active at night, preying on lobsters, mollusks, and small fish. Nurse sharks have very small teeth the size of large grains of sand. I did not know that part. They feed primarily by sucking prey into their mouths. And it's kind of interesting, because I've heard of nurse sharks giving divers a really nasty bite if they're disturbed. So it's kind of interesting that they have small teeth, because I've heard of them I have heard of incidents, and they are in the International Shark Attack file just for provoked incidents. So it's nothing. It's nothing that the shark did. It's only if a diver got too close or touched it, which you should not do. So lemon sharks. So first time we've seen lemon sharks on this tour of the Caribbean. So beautiful sharks. They're in the same family as bulls, but they are a different genus. So they are Negaprion. So bit of a evolutionarily different kind of offshoot. And you can tell really mainly the second dorsal fin is very large, and that's a big thing that separates them from Conroe-Nicholls, which always has a small second dorsal fin. So lemon sharks give birth in shallow mangrove estuaries. As juveniles, they live in small groups feeding on small fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and cephalopods. For the first 3 years of their lives, lemon sharks live in small, well-defined territories which they patrol. On reaching maturity, they move offshore, where their diet changes to larger fish, small sharks, rays, lobsters, and crabs. Lemon sharks are among the few shark species that are tolerant of relatively high water temperatures, low salinity, and low oxygen concentrations that come from living in shallow coastal waters. So, really cool group of sharks. They're similar to sand tigers, where they're intimidating looking, but they don't really bother people too much. They're more fish specialists, and they're just huge and beautiful and kind of fearsome looking, but again, very, very safe species to be around. Really cool. Caribbean reef shark, of course, so glad to see this also included in this group of coastal sharks. They prefer shallow coral reef environments, particularly at reef drop-offs and outer reef wall. As with most sharks, the species is more active at night than during the day and feed mainly on a wide variety of reef fish and cephalopods. The Caribbean reef shark was nicknamed the sleeping shark, as one of the few requiem sharks that can rest on the seabed while still respiring. That's so odd. I've never heard of that before. And its body form doesn't suggest that it could do that, really, so interesting. It's one of the largest predators in coral reef systems, making it an apex predator in its habitat. As such, the Caribbean reef shark holds top-down control, meaning its presence affects the composition of the reef community through predation and mediation of the numbers of other reef species. Recent studies have shown that the removal of Caribbean reef sharks from their reef environment leads to degradation and eventual smothering of the coral reef by algae. This action is facilitated by the initial boost of smaller predatory species such as grouper and snapper, which then remove the herbivorous species such as parrotfish from the reef. This is followed by a decline in grouper and snapper as their prey source becomes depleted. Caribbean reef sharks are valuable to the tourism industry. In the Bahamas, the economic value of one live reef shark was found to be hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So I really love this paragraph because it's the clearest example. Like we do often see how sharks are a key role in their ecosystem, and that is something that is thrown around very heavily. But unfortunately, I've seen that term thrown around without a really good detailed explanation of like how they're key ecosystems of their key components of the ecosystem, like how they contribute to the ecosystem specifically. And this is like a really, really good one that's a lot more concrete, where if you remove Caribbean reef sharks, like large fish explode in population and they eat small fish. And as they kind of decimate the small fish population, that causes the small fish's prey items to explode, and that includes algae. And that, in turn really hurts the coral reef. So it's great to see, and we need more studies like this, but it's great to see a very clear example of like this is what happens when you remove a top-level shark, apex predator like a shark, from an ecosystem where it causes everything else to kind of get wonky and imbalanced to a point where it will have a really consequential impact. I think the other more famous example, just in general, of predator release is sea otters on the west coast. Sea otters were hunted for their fur, which is really horrible, and that caused an immediate crash in or immediate collapse in the ecosystems that they were removed from, in that sea urchins were booming because sea otters weren't eating them, and the sea urchins in turn were chopping down huge swaths of kelp forest, which are big supports of complex ecosystems for other animals like invertebrates and fish. And eventually you have these kelp barrens that are just these like wastelands, and a healthy forest could have been there if you had a sea otter population to help manage the sea urchins. So everything is about balance, and everything is evolved in a way that um, you know has a balance, and the sharks have been here for a reason. And so I really appreciate that this is a concrete example of what happens when you remove the shark species and the cascading effect on other animals in its ecosystem. So, blacktip shark, Carcharodontis lymbatus. So this is different from the blacktip reef shark. We mentioned the blacktip reef shark earlier, so here we go. So this is blacktip reef shark, which again has the very strongly colored black tips on the dorsal fin, so it's like dipping the fins in paint. And this is the blacktip shark, which is not quite like that. So you can actually see, particularly on the first dorsal fin, it's only like a tiny little bit, tiny little tip. And actually, this might be a spinner shark, because you can even see here, there's a black tip on the anal fin, and that's actually not something that blacktip sharks have. So this photograph might be wrong. That actually might be wrong. That, that this is tricky, because this is where you get confusion with Carcharodontis. This might be a Caribbean reef shark, actually, because like Caribbean reef sharks have dusky coloration on their fins. And they do have black tips on their lower pectorals. I think this actually might be a Caribbean reef shark, and the lighting is making the fin tips look darker. Regardless, this is not a blacktip shark, because blacktip sharks do have clear, like their anal fins don't have black tips. So let's actually show an example. I had this Shark ID guide from Annie Merck pulled up on the side just to have it. I'm glad we're using it. There we go. This is a blacktip shark. And this is actually a really good example of how the species. So blacktip sharks overall have a very sharp look. Like their fins a little bit concave. Pectoral fins also concave too. Anal fin clearly does not have a black tip. The anal fin is actually pretty light in coloration, and everything else about the shark is so pointed. Like the snout is pointed. So I think this was just a mistake on this wildlife guide. This is actually the more I look at this, this is more like, this is a Caribbean reef shark. This isn't a blacktip shark. This is not even a spinner shark. This is a Caribbean reef shark. So, and it just shows you this genus, Carcharodontis, it's really tricky. It's very hard to tell these sharks apart. So, again, by comparison, here's a Caribbean reef shark, and here's a blacktip shark. They are similar enough where, it takes practice to kind of figure out like what really makes these two different, because they superficially look so similar, but when you really stare at them, you can tell. Again, the blacktip shark has like really sharp features and doesn't have coloration on the anal fin, whereas the Caribbean reef shark is a little bit more rounded in its features, and it does have coloration on the anal fin. So yeah, just subtle differences, and understandably, people get confused. Even governments. This is a government publication, and it's still, easy to confuse these species. So, but anyway, blacktip sharks are found in tropical, subtropical, shallow coastal waters. The females give birth in the same nursery sites they were born in themselves, and the pups spend the first 3 months of their lives in these nurseries, feeding on small fish and cephalopods. As adults, blacktip sharks are mainly piscivores and tend to be segregated in groups by both age and sex. While they are known to be very timid sharks wary of humans, they are also very fast and energetic. It's one of the few shark species that make spectacular spinning leaps out of the water whilst feeding on schooling fish. So these are the coastal groups. So blacktip shark, which is a Caribbean reef shark, lemon shark, and nurse shark in the Cayman Islands. Let's take a look at the pelagic sharks in the Cayman Islands. So starting with the tiger shark. So we talked about tiger sharks just now in Jamaica. So it's cool to see tiger sharks in Cayman Islands, which is not too far away. So these guys are massive. The deepest known sighting of a tiger shark was in the Cayman Trench, just shy of 900 feet or 274 meters. Wow. So it's cool that we're talking about tiger sharks in Cayman Islands and that their deepest sighting is right in the Cayman Trench. I don't know if that's correct though. I think they have been found deeper, but genetic analysis have showed that populations from the Atlantic and Pacific regions are significantly dissimilar, suggesting that there's no sexual mixing between these populations. On the contrary, genetic analysis has also shown there's complete mixing within these two groups. Okay. I would not be surprised if tiger sharks are cosmopolitan, because they are found all over the world, and I would not be. I guess what I mean is I would not be surprised if there were a global population, just because they are found all over the world. But reputation as being dangerous is often exaggerated. The name alone invites fear. Interaction with divers, however, has shown time and again that they have little interest in humans, although wild animals should be treated with respect at all times and never provoked. So, I think I mentioned this last stream. Tiger sharks are pretty calm to be around in dive situations, but they are large predatory sharks that, um, are uniquely evolved to handle large prey items. So it definitely is a shark that deserves respect and caution. So, great hammerhead shark. So wonderful to see this species. Beautiful, beautiful shark with a pretty intimidating appearance. Great hammerhead sharks can be found in pelagic and coastal systems. Species is reported to have suffered a dramatic decline of more than 80% in the past 25 years. The largest of all known hammerhead species, the great hammerhead is known to be a nomadic animal, seldom traveling groups more than two. The distinctive characteristics that set it apart from other hammerheads are its size and girth, and extremely tall dorsal fin. Several consider ideas on the reason reason for the hammerhead to have its cephalofoil. Firstly, they use their head to pin the rays they feed onto the ground, which they can take selective bites from the ray wings. Secondly, the array of electropores or apelli lorenzini combined with the large width of the head is thought to allow for global positioning triangulation using the Earth's magnetosphere, aiding the shark's navigation of the oceans with stunning accuracy. They also scan the seabed using their electrosensitive pores, much like a metal detector, picking up electric rhythms of buried prey animals. So, really cool shark. We talk about hammerheads so much on the channel, and it's good that we do because they are critically endangered and they need a lot of conservation attention. But just really cool re-emphasis that the hammer-shaped head. It could be used for pitting the stingrays to the seabed. It could be used for amplifying its electromagnetic sense, but it also could be used as additional lift for the shark swimming, or additional maneuverability where hammerheads can make really tight turns and can bank more effectively than other sharks. Because of that hammerhead, it allows them to generate enough momentum to make like a really tight hairpin turn. Not hairpin turn, but a really tight turn better than other kinds of sharks. So, many advantages of having the hammer-shaped head. I'm glad we were mentioning this one, the oceanic whitetip, Conroe-Nicholls longomonus. So this is also in the Caribbean. Oceanic whitetips are amongst the most wide-ranging shark species in tropical, subtropical, and warm-temperate oceans. They are slow-moving species that active both day and night. Historically, the species was frequently sighted, often following large container ships of fishing boats. However, over the past 50 years, world fisheries have drastically reduced their populations. In the Gulf of Mexico, oceanic whitetips have declined drastically by 99%. Its environment in the open ocean, the habitat is uniform with very few places for prey species to hide except amongst floating debris and weed. Bait fish accumulate in these hides, bringing in larger fish species such as mahi-mahi, which make up a large portion of the oceanic whitetip's diet, which are and mahi-mahi are patrolled by these sharks. Oceanic whitetips are one of the few shark species whose nurseries appear to be oceanic and pelagic. Notably, larger individuals are caught at greater depths than smaller individuals, and the species is found at greater concentrations of increasing distance from landmass. Interesting. Silky shark. So we saw a brief mention of it in the Cuba shark guide. Silky sharks are known to be largely pelagic. However, immature sharks can be found in coral reef ecosystems. That's the only note that we have for Cayman Islands. So for the pelagics, we have silky shark, oceanic whitetip, which is also an extremely dangerous species. So it's actually kind of cool that we've seen three of the fatal four. So you have the tiger shark, the bull shark, and the oceanic whitetip are all found in the Caribbean. White sharks are found in the Caribbean too. They historically were in the Caribbean more than they are now, because they're. We learned this recently, that their chief prey item, which is Caribbean monk seal, was unfortunately hunted to extinction, and that's shifted the distribution of white sharks away from the Caribbean, which is kind of interesting. So, but the other large predatory sharks that are dangerous species to be around are still here. Great hammerhead, tiger shark, and I think that's it for the pelagics for the Cayman Islands. So what's really fascinating, excuse me, what's really fascinating about the sharks that we just covered is that all of the species, with the exception of the Caribbean reef shark, actually no, including Caribbean reef shark, all those species can go up Florida, and all of them actually can be found in Virginia except for the Caribbean reef shark. Caribbean reef shark, their distribution stops in the Carolinas, but every other species I mentioned can also be found in Virginia, where I live, which is really interesting. It just shows how massive the range of sharks is, and really, like, endemic species of sharks, they're not going to be these large species. They're going to be like smaller species that are more bound to reefs. So I'm curious if we'll see any endemics here. I don't think there's too many in the Caribbean, but as we continue, that'll be kind of interesting to look for. So one place I want to check out for a couple minutes, we'll kind of hop back and forth. I mentioned Roatan as one of the top dive locations in the Caribbean. And, this is part of why you have crystal clear water and incredible diving opportunities. This is a Caribbean reef shark. Oop. There we go. So Caribbean reef sharks, with this beautiful school of coral reef fish. You have some remoras following around. Beautiful, beautiful shots of this species. Around some sponges and corals. And they're just kind of swarming around here too. As we look through, it'd be kind of cool to see if there's any additional sharks that may come in to this scene, but so far just Caribbean reef sharks here. So you could see, like, all the clips that we've seen so far. A Caribbean reef shark pops up at least once, so you can see just how common this species is. And it's kind of cool that its namesake is well deserved, is that this is a staple of the Caribbean. So beautiful, very graceful species, and clearly very safe to be around in a dive setting. And also occupied a really, really large school too. You have these beautiful reef fishes sticking close to the bottom, so they don't want to be where the sharks are. Save for the remoras. The remoras like to be where the sharks are, but the other reef fishes, they really, really want to just stick to that bottom, close to their coral environment. Just beautiful, beautiful sharks. All of them very healthy, just having a great sheen, like this really, really nice sheen on them. And again, very calm. Their pectoral fins are in a normal position. Their swimming movements are normal too. If a shark is aggravated, it will swim in exaggerated movements and angle its pectoral fins down. But these sharks are not doing that. They're very, very calm, and just kind of curious about the divers in the situation that they're in right now. Just kind of, they probably are accustomed to being hand-fed by the divers, so that might be why they're drawn to them right now. But just really, really great shots and just like such clear visibility too. See a little Sergeant Major on the bottom. It's cool to see the sharks are just cruising. Not really so interested in what's going on. I thought I saw a black tip. I'm gonna keep an eye out for just a couple more seconds, and then we'll move on. No, these look like they're all Caribbean reef. Um, they're all pretty slender. They all have the dark coloration on the underside of the pectoral fins. Dark coloration on anal fins too, so it's a Caribbean reef shark characteristic. I actually really appreciate spending so much time with the species on this episode because I mentioned it before. This one has, oh look at that! There's some kind of grouper try to get some bait from, or some kind of reef fish trying to get some bait from people. That's so funny. So I mentioned that Caribbean reef shark is a species that I've personally had trouble with distinguishing from other shark species, but spending more time with these now on the stream, and it's really helped kind of familiarize myself with this species body plan, and just kind of seeing that, just between the coloration on the fins, how slender these sharks are, and just kind of their behavior, I could distinguish this from a blacktip shark or a other kinds of sharks. Like dusky shark would be a little bit tricky to distinguish a shark from, but I think with practice, there's ways you can identify them, because dusky sharks, I think their dorsal fin's further back on the body. So, but yeah, a lot of great clips of Caribbean reef sharks. So I think we'll move on to our next dive location and see what we can learn. So we were at Cayman Islands. Now we're going to go to Punta Cana, and that is in, let me make sure I have this right, because I think that is nearby. Dominican Republic. Okay. Okay, cool. So, the east coast of the Dominican Republic. So, for orientation, we're traveling all the way here, getting closer to the Lesser Antilles. So, Punta Cana is right here. So, shark diving tour in Punta Cana. So, here are some photographs of, this looks like a silver tip shark almost, just because we have discolor or light coloration here. Probably is a Caribbean reef shark, but just really interesting how that looks a little bit different. Gray reef shark in Punta Cana, interesting. Guide to a maximum depth of 30 meters. Opportunity to see reef sharks and nurse sharks. Let's see. Caribbean reef sharks and nurse sharks are not aggressive. Furthermore, on the site they're used to seeing divers. However, it's important that you and all divers respect them and maintain a safe distance. As a safe practice, you are never to touch a shark and never swim over or between them. Let's see. You must be an advanced diver or higher level to participate. Okay. Really cool logo, by the way. So not too many notes. The photographs are really interesting, though. I'm a little surprised by this one, gray reef shark. I don't recall gray reef sharks having that kind of distribution. So let's find out. Kirkrinus amblyranchos is gray reef shark. So I'm just checking IUCN Red List really quickly to verify the distribution. Yes, so gray reef shark is not found in this location. Gray reef shark is an Indo-Pacific species, so I'm not really sure why they're saying this species is in Punta Cana, this might be the same dive operator that may have traveled abroad. That's my guess for that. So, yeah, interesting. So I guess we'll move on. Grand Cayman, which we, I think we already talked about Cayman Islands, but we could go back. So, Grand Cayman, Ultimate Guide to Shark Species in Grand Cayman Waters. I'm just going to skim through this to see if there's any new notes. Beautiful shot of a lemon shark here. So this is a lemon shark cruising over a coral reef bed. And in the background, you can actually see some Caribbean reef sharks too. We have a shot of a Caribbean reef shark. Nurse shark again. So it's kind of cool. We're seeing in different countries and different regions, you're just seeing a lot of familiar faces. There's a great hammerhead shark. You could tell by the shape of the cephalofoil and the height of the dorsal fin. And the shape of the dorsal fin too. It's very high. It's sickle shaped. Blacktip reef shark here. Let's verify that species distribution too, because that one I'm used to being an Indo-Pacific species. Carcharodontis melanopterus. Yeah, so this is really sad. I think a lot of these dive operators, they're confusing blacktip sharks with blacktip reef sharks. So blacktip reef sharks are found in the Indo-Pacific. They aren't really in the Atlantic. I think there has been some research on strays getting into the Caribbean, but I don't know how verifiable that is, because unfortunately this really goes to show that English names can be really confusing. Because here's the blacktip shark. A blacktip shark can be found in the Caribbean, so the classic blacktip shark is fine. And I think this is the species that these people like a lot of operators are getting confused with. But clearly this looks so different from blacktip reef sharks, and I think they're pulling blacktip reef photos instead of blacktip photos. So blacktips again, they don't have a strong coloration. They have a very sharp look to them: pointed snout, pointed dorsal fin, pointed pectoral fins. And ecologically a little bit different from blacktip reef sharks. They get bigger. I think they're a little bit more active swimmers. So this is a blacktip reef shark. This is a blacktip shark. They are different species, and I think unfortunately they're getting confused in some of these photographs. So yeah, it's so odd that it keeps coming up here. So. Oh, great shot. This is a great shot of a great hammerhead right here, actually. Beautiful, beautiful shot of the species. And then this is a very, very small individual Caribbean reef shark, so a really cool shot here, too. Okay, so moving on to a new location, Coral World Ocean Park. This is in the Virgin Islands, so we'll kind of move forward. So here we go. You have the British Virgin Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands, but both are east of Puerto Rico. So now we're definitely in the Lesser Antilles. So it's kind of cool to see the Caribbean reef shark icon here. But obviously Caribbean reef shark are found all throughout the Caribbean. So staple species all throughout this region. So Sharks and Rays, learned from our shark and stingray experts for Coral World Ocean Park, which is found in the Virgin Islands. This is kind of interesting. I will read this really briefly. Did you know that sharks and stingrays are related to one another? Sharks, rays, and skates all belong to the same animal group called Elazobranchii. Unlike bony fish, elazobranchs have a skeleton made out of cartilage and 5 to 7 pairs of gill slits that protect their gills from external stressors. In addition, elazobranchs differ from bony fish by having their stiff dorsal fin, lacking a swim bladder, having tooth-like scales that cover their bodies called Conroe-Nicholls, and by reproducing through copulation. So, sharks and rays fertilize internally, analogous to mammals. whereas fish spawn. They fertilize externally. There are some exceptions, but most fish spawn, similar to or analogous to frogs. I think do that too. So, or amphibians, I should say. Elasmobranchs also have multiple rows of teeth they could shed and replace regularly. There are 9 species of sharks in the Caribbean that inhabit the waters surrounding the U.S. Virgin Islands, some of which are commonly observed. These 9 species include the Caribbean reef shark, the black-tip shark, the lemon shark, the Caribbean nurse shark, the Caribbean sharp-nosed shark, this is a new one for us, the tiger shark, the black-nosed shark, also new, the great hammerhead shark, and the scalped hammerhead shark. So, we have the lemon shark here. They're just going to list some general facts, so I'll just kind of breeze through this. But lemon sharks inhabit coral reefs, mangrove lagoons, enclosed bays, and river mouths. You have the Caribbean nurse shark here, which is it's the same species as the Atlantic nurse shark, so it's I don't know if Caribbean nurse shark is a subspecies, but classic nurse shark barbels. And actually, this individual looks a little bit smaller because you can see very prominent dermal denticles here. You have, this is a lemon shark, so this is a mistake. This photograph is of a lemon shark here. Southern stingrays. Let's see, I'd like to learn more about how they kind of categorize the sharks and label them and describe them, so here we go. This is just kind of general shark facts. Okay, so the shark facts sheet is just more general, not really specific species. So let's see if they have something a little bit more detailed. Yep. So I think this is just kind of more like a travel website for dive opportunities with sharks. But I think there's a way we can learn more about sharks of the Virgin Islands here. So, U.S. Virgin Islands shark diving, snorkeling tours in St. Thomas and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So gorgeous shot, here of the Caribbean reef shark. Beautiful, beautiful shots here. Sharks guaranteed. Okay, so what is your first time underwater, or you've logged hundreds of dives, or shark diving trips are built for everyone? No certification is needed. Just show up, gear up, and get ready for an unforgettable encounter with some of the ocean's most magnificent creatures. Sharks are guaranteed on every dive. You'll see Caribbean reef sharks, lemon sharks, nurse sharks, and black-tip sharks regularly. On the right day, you might spot tiger sharks and great hammerheads too. It's an adrenaline rush like nothing else. There's also snorkeling adventures here too. Oh wow, this is a great shot of a lemon shark. Look at this. From a side, it almost looks like a sand tiger, but it is a lemon shark, just with the dorsal fins. But it's just such a good shot. Beautiful shot of a. This looks like a Caribbean reef shark, but although actually no, this might be a bull shark. This one is a bull shark because you have these beautiful, perfectly shaped, triangular shaped teeth. So this might be a bull. So this is all about the dive website specifically, but I don't think they have any shark facts. It's more so like dive facts. So okay. Okay. So on this first, we'll skip to a new location a little bit, but on this first website for U.S. Virgin Islands, or sorry, Virgin Islands, they do have some more detailed facts on both the lemon shark and the nurse shark. So kind of like to learn a little bit more. Let's see. These are kind of like the basic facts. And we did do a lemon shark episode where we did talk about most of this, but this is probably the most important fact for lemon sharks. Juveniles inhabit nursery grounds such as seagrass fields, lagoons, tidal creeks, and mangrove lagoons, where they form tight-knit groups that can last for 10 years. Juveniles feed primarily on smaller juvenile fish species such as snapper, porgies, hatbeaks, snake eels, and grunts, and small crustaceans. Although once abundant throughout their range, decades of overfishing have caused populations to decline in certain areas. So lemon shark is such a cool shark. It looks like Virgin Islands are a really great stronghold for them. For nurse sharks, let's see if we could learn anything new. These sharks are active at night, as a result spend much of the daytime resting beneath coral ledges, caves, and crevices. These sharks contain a pair of sensory appendages on their snouts called barbels that they use to locate prey. Oh, wow. They vary in color, although rare milk white specimens have been observed. Unlike blacktip Caribbean reef and lemon sharks, Caribbean nurse sharks have a simple tooth arrangement where adjacent teeth do not overlap. Caribbean reef sharks are nocturnal predators that feed on squid, shrimps, crabs, spiny lobsters, sea urchins, and small fishes. In the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, studies suggest that the populations feed primarily on small fish species. Caribbean nurse sharks have a large pharynx that enables them to suck up prey efficiently and that is strong enough to suck a conch out of its shell. Although many aspects of their life history are still unknown, study said that a study by Castro, who's a really famous shark scientist, found that not like a different Castro, because we were talking about Cuba earlier, but different Castro. Very, very famous North American shark scientist found that Caribbean nurse sharks can attain lengths up to 2.6 meters or 265 centimeters long and can weigh as much as 106 kilos, so pretty large sharks. So you can get them to be about like 10 feet, so pretty big. Age of sexual maturity ranges from 10 to 20 years. Give birth to an average 34 pups every 2 years. And are threatened from overfishing. Overall, I think nurse sharks are doing really well. So let me confirm that. There we go. Okay, so nurse sharks apparently are vulnerable in population. So apparently in the Mexican Caribbean, there's an increasing population. However, in Cuba and Costa Rica, has been for a decline in abundance based on reduction in catches. Interesting. So the reason it's globally vulnerable is due to intense and largely unmanaged coastal and commercial artisanal fisheries across its range. Rapid and severe decline in other coastal wildlife in some areas. Intense human development has caused coastal habitat degradation, ongoing effects of climate change on coral habitat. Overall, it's expected the shark has undergone a population reduction of 34.9%. That's why it's considered vulnerable. Okay, good to know regarding this species. So I think our last note or location for tonight it's kind of cool ending here on Elasmo Diver, which is the original website from Andy Merck, who does these amazing shark photographs. But he has a note on St. Martin. So for reference, that is here. So this is east of the Virgin Islands, so it's part of the Lesser Antilles region. So here we go. This is the old website, so it's kind of funny to compare. This is Andy Merck, world famous shark photographer. This is his first website, but his new one, sharksandrays.com, is phenomenal, and I will post this in the chat. It's a website with just like a really great photo index of and photo ID guide of sharks all around the world, as well as diving tips on how to encounter a shark species. So, but I'm curious to see what he has to say about St. Martin in particular, and then I think we'll wrap up for the night after that. So, St. Martin. Caribbean reef sharks and black-nosed sharks, Conroe-Nicholls. This is an organized shark feed where the black-nosed sharks generally arrive first and hang out until the Caribbean reef sharks take over. So for reference, a black-nosed shark will actually use the ID guide. So black-nosed sharks are a cousin of Caribbean reef sharks and black-tip sharks and bull sharks. They're in the same genus, but they're much smaller. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Conroe-Nicholls. Yep. So they're really, really pretty sharks. Let's see if we can get a photo with their namesake. And this might be it. Okay. You can kind of see a little bit. So the edge of the snout has like a little black tip. So this is the black-nosed shark. And then the other shark Andy mentioned is the Caribbean reef shark, of course. So apparently, black-nosed sharks are the first to arrive in St. Martin on this dive, and the Caribbean reef sharks take over. The feeder wears chainmail sleeves, and the divers arrange themselves in a line, Bahama-style, kneeling on the sand. The individual reef sharks are constantly repeat visitors that are well known to the feeders. Consequently, they are very bold, pushing between the feeders' legs to get at the bait. The black-nosed sharks are harder to approach, but if no Caribbean reef sharks show up, then they become much bolder, and it can become erratic and hard to control. Operators Whitney and Bobby Keogh, not sure if I'm saying that right, of Dive Safari started the feed some years ago, and they remain the only dive company that regularly organizes feeds. Their feeders are well trained, and the Shark Awareness Dive site starts with a thorough explanation of the shark's behavior and incorporates useful advice and information on the need for shark protection. Dive Safaris has 2 stores on either side of the Dutch part of the island. The Shark Dive leaves from Bobby's Marina in Philipsburg. A variety of quaint hotels and guest houses are available. Most travelers arrive on package charters, which is probably the best option financially. Many of the shark divers arrive on cruise ships just for the day, and the ships that stop at St. Martin offer the shark dive as one of their excursions. Very cool. So, and there's like a link to black-nosed shark pictures, so kind of. Oh, there we go. And it'll just take us back to the new website. So, all right. So overall, it's interesting seeing the first episode that we did, or the first episode on Caribbean sharks that we did, had. And I'll zoom back here. The first episode that we did had a higher biodiversity of sharks and kind of covered a lot of species from that FAO guide. So that included the night shark, the Caribbean sharp-nosed shark, 3 smoothhounds, as well as the classic staples that we've seen too, like the tiger shark and the oceanic whitetip. And on this guide, it's been really interesting where, from a diving perspective, the species list narrows. On the western side of the Caribbean, closer to the coast, or closer to Central America, you get more encounters with bull sharks, and whale sharks were mentioned there too. When you get to the center of the Caribbean, you have some mentions of silky sharks, and then a little bit of mention of the oceanic whitetip. And then as you get to the eastern side, now you're getting to lemon sharks and black-nosed sharks. So it's actually really cool to see that there is a shift in distribution a little bit in terms of all of those sharks occupy the entire region, but their quantity shifts as you go from one place to another. So it's kind of cool to see that. I'm particularly fascinated by the black nose shark, lemon sharks being on the eastern side of the Caribbean, just because coming down from the Bahamas, those are like flat, sandy areas, with seagrass meadows, and both species do like that habitat. And it's actually really cool that in the central Caribbean, adjacent to areas with really deep trenches, which are open ocean pelagic areas, that's where we mention larger species like tiger sharks, great hammerheads, silky sharks, and oceanic white tips. So, but again, all of them can be found in any part of the Caribbean. Their distribution is different in each location, and it's actually kind of cool to see that there are some sharks that unite the entire Caribbean Sea, and that would be these Caribbean reef sharks, which completely earn their namesake, as well as nurse sharks. Nurse sharks are found in every corner, and we've in every country that we kind of hopped back and forth between. We've seen Caribbean reef sharks, nurse sharks mentioned, and it's kind of cool that these are the staples of the region. So overall, this is really cool to come back and visit Sharks of the Caribbean and have another shot at seeing the biodiversity. So I'm glad that the first episode was more of like a total view of every species you could possibly see in the region from a scientific perspective. And then this was kind of more of like a tourism view of species that you popularly encounter. So what you're more likely to see, and including footage and photographs, and some of it has just been beautiful. So I'm glad we got to take another stab at it and have a more comprehensive view of Sharks of the Caribbean. So, but I think with that, hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And next week we'll return to format with a mystery shark, so a single shark species that will focus more on their conservation needs. There's been a couple that have caught my eye in the Conroe-Nicholls that I think are really interesting, and it's kind of fascinating we haven't talked about them yet. So I'm really, and they're going to be on the opposite side of the world. So I'm excited to go back to the Pacific and visit some of the smaller members of the ground shark order, Conroe-Nicholls, and see what we can see and learn what we can learn, and get back to focusing on those like really weird, unusual, like not well-known sharks, and kind of giving them more of a platform. So I'm excited to dive into that next week. But until then, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week for a mystery shark and another classic Dr. Jaws stream. As always, if you have any suggestions or comments for next week's stream or future streams on species you would like to see, please let me know, and I'd be happy to take a look and dive in with you guys. So, but have a great night, have a great week, and I'll see you next week for our mystery shark. Till then, cheers. Bye.